but it sounds like the developers are confident and committed to those timescales.
Certainly the target is to commence within the first 5 years, and then in terms of any ongoing construction, that may well be after the 5-year period, but certainly making a start on site would be as early as possible within the first 5 years.
So from your perspective, having year 3 and year 4 in the trajectory is still within your expected timeframes?
You might have to translate that into calendar years rather than trajectory years for me.
Yeah, so year 3 is 26, 27, and year 4 is 27, 28.
I would say for completions, year 3 is probably optimistic to that trajectory into moving into starting on site following a period of review of the deliverability of the permission and the need to introduce that flexibility in terms of the types of residential uses that are being brought forward and potentially the amount of commercial uses being brought forward. I think of the areas we've identified where flexibility would be beneficial in the site allocation.
I think just to add to that, the text in the site allocation makes reference to employment-led, and it across the site, Sunwharf has the largest capacity for residential uses. So it's getting comfort and flexibility that the majority of the residential development can be delivered through the Sunwharf parcel of the site. Certainly, as part of the planning permission from last year, there is commercial area, ground floor across the Sunwharf site, and it's other parts of the site, Cockpit Arts and Network Rail, have the capacity for higher commercial uses in those parts of the site. The Sunwharf is for higher capacity for the residential uses.
Just to clarify, the concern is that if during the course of bringing forward an amendment to the current application, the new site allocation is in place, and that leads to a demand or request for the amount of commercial floor space to be provided on Sunwharf to significantly increase from the current planning permission, that would be a real concern in terms of deliverability.
Yeah, just to say, it is a designated MEL. I don't think we had any written reps to challenge the employment hierarchy and the kind of designation of an MEL. So it is an employment-led site, but we certainly wouldn't be looking for an increase in commercial floor space, employment floor space on an existing consent. I mean, again, the council would effectively want to work with you to overcome the issues of the second staircase and then implement the planning application that we've got.
Just in terms of viability, I don't think the site, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it's identified as a specific site in terms of the viability assessment. Presumably, obviously in relation to your part of the site, the viability assessment work has been done at a more detailed level than the plan-wide viability. So I suppose I'm looking to the council to give a view in terms of viability of the remainder of the site and how that's been assessed.
There is a category in the viability assessment, category 18, which is effectively large MEL sites, which would encapsulate this this site.
And certainly in terms of that land category, the viability aspect is reasonably positive.
Indeed, and I guess that reflects also the detailed viability assessment that we got in, which secured 39% affordable housing on a HAB room basis.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please.
I think it is worth noting the viability work that accompanied the previous planning application is now quite aged and isn't reflective of current market conditions in terms of the viability of the planning permission on Sunwolf to deliver. And that's again why we're looking for that flexibility, or to ensure that flexibility is in the site allocation around the nature of the residential uses that are brought forward and the provision of only a sensible amount of commercial floor space on the site. Because currently, when you layer on the impact of construction inflation, need to incorporate amendments to the design to comply with the new building regulations. As of today, I don't think we would move the site directly into delivery. We need that flexibility to amend the scheme before we could see it come forward.
I think it's it sounds like a detailed discussion needs to be had probably outside this forum. I don't think there's anything insurmountable here. I think obviously we've got committed developers who want to bring forward the site. Obviously the council has worked proactively with the developers to bring forward the site. So I think if we can take that away and yeah, have that conversation out of this forum.
I think that would be helpful if you could just give us an update as an action post discussions, just to close out the discussion that we've had here, which we can't fully conclude, but I think you need to have that conversation just so you can provide us with some certainty in relation to this application, this site.
Yeah, absolutely, we will do. Yeah.
Okay, and turning to modifications then, please.
Again, I'm going to draw a breath because I think it reflects the hard work carried out by the council and its development partners in getting this consent. There are a number of modifications. I think the first has already been discussed, is slightly superseded, but I will explain as I talk through it. So they are all in submitted document PD11, starting off with MO 115. It is an amendment to reflect the factual position in terms of the site's planning history. So it seeks to delete the words "was considered at Strategic Planning Committee on 1st of September 2022. The current modification seeks to replace that with "has a resolution to approve." The council will replace that with the factual position relating to the consent. Modification MO116 relates to the supporting text paragraph at 15.105. That corrects a typographic error. Modification MO117 I think that also corrects a typographic error in relation to formatting, and I believe the same is true for modification MO118. Modification MO119 reflects the makeup of the site, so introduces the words "and Sun Wharf" after the site address Cockpit Arts Centre, Cockpit Arts Centre, and I'm sort of looking to my Transport for London colleague out of the corner of my left eye, because the next modification rates the PTAL accessibility rating for the site as 3 to 4. Would the inspectors like me to pause there, because I suspect that's what my colleague wishes to speak on?
Yes, please.
Sorry, no, it was actually the next modification that you're going to go through.
Well, that's taught me good and proper. I'll never learn. So the next part of that modification, under modification MO119, speaks to the delivery of cycleways, and that's under point or criterion 5. So it's similar towards other modifications that have been made elsewhere, and seeks, from the council's perspective, to respond to comments raised at Regulation 19 consultation. So the proposed modification deletes the words "facilitate" and introduces the words "make a proportionate contribution towards." So the sentence will read, "The site must also make a proportionate contribution towards the delivery of cycleway 10, which runs over Halfpenny Bridge, and cycleway 35 running along Creekside." And I will pause.
Now to TfL.
Just a bit of clarification. So the reference to cycleway 35 is probably a mistake. Cycleway 35 is actually in Peckham, but there is a cycleway immediately south of the site which currently doesn't have a number, and which should be referenced in that paragraph.
Would you take the number out?
We can amend the modification accordingly. Thank you. Moving on with modification MO119. It concludes with this relates to the safeguarding of the adjoining brewery wharf. So it seeks to delete some words. It seeks to delete the term "in close proximity." So the sentence will introduce the words "adjacent" and, in brackets, "located to the northeast." So this is placing Brewery Wharf within or rather the site allocation within a larger geographic context that includes Brewery Wharf. So the sentence will read, "The proposed residential development located adjacent to the safeguarded Brewery Wharf, brackets, located to the northeast, should be designed to minimize," etc. And finally, modification MO120. Again, this seeks to delete some words and introduce new words, some of which are similar to those already introduced and some of which are new. Under table 13.1, there is a deletion of the word "overall" and introduction of the words "minimum scale of." So the sentence would read, "summarizes the minimum scale of delivery outcomes." Sorry, that's a repeat of the one above, cycleway contribute towards. So the same in terms of the cycleway numbering. An entirely new modification at criterion 8. So again, this responds to comments from the Environment Agency, I believe, and introduces the text, "Developers must work with the Environment Agency to ensure that green infrastructure improvements complement and enable necessary investment in flood risk management." And finally, again, in relation to Brewery Wharf, but new modifications, So deletions so that the sentence reads proposals for new residential development located in proximity to the neighbouring safeguarded brewery wharf, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Belwayne Peabody.
Just a few points. In terms of our theme of flexibility, in paragraph 15.103, we would suggest that the term residential uses make it clear that it's inclusive of all types of accommodation, including conventional housing, student housing, co-living, etc., and specialist housing. I've got two other points in relation to council's proposed modifications. As it relates to Brewery Wharf, factually it's not adjacent. This is Brewery Wharf, the safeguarded wharf. Factually, it's not adjacent to the Sun Wharf site. In our written statement, I've helpfully put hopefully a helpful figure 1 on page 9, which shows the location of Brewery Wharf, which is about 300 metres northeast of the site in Greenwich. So it's just a factual point about not being adjacent to Sun Wharf. And then the final point was just in terms of the cycle contributions. It's just ensuring that any contributions are in line with meeting the tests of Regulation 122.
Thank you. Just to come back to the council, in terms of any final comments.
I don't think we have anything to add to that. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing further on number 18, the Sun Wharf site, then I think it's time to break for lunch. My computer has lost its power. So it's 1 o'clock. I think we will take a break for an hour, and we'll adjourn at 1 o'clock now. So we'll come back at 2 o'clock if that's agreeable to everyone. Yep, thank you.